Hello and welcome. My name is Christian Traverson, educator with the Loman Planetarium, and in this episode we'll be covering the dates of July 5th to July 11th, 2021. This week we'll be looking to the west to see Venus slowly continuing its rise to meet Mars. Arcturus, in the constellation of Boötes, can be found high overhead, and for you astrophotographers out there, the Pinwheel Galaxy can be found here in the western sky as well. We'll also end with an update on the status of the Hubble Space Telescope and a SpaceX launch of the Falcon 9 happening later this week. Before we begin, we're just coming off the 4th of July weekend, so we hope you had a safe and wonderful holiday. But on July 5th, we also want to wish you a happy aphelion day. That is, the period at which the Earth is furthest away from the Sun in our elliptical orbit, and that distance is around 94.5 million miles away, incredibly far. Now I want to take us past this daytime sky here into the sunset, which is actually a relatively late 8:36 in the evening. Pretty late for a sunset, especially during these summertime months. So I'm going to continue to fast forward time here so we can take a look at some objects in our early evening sky right after the sun sets. And some of the first objects you will see are some planets. We can actually see Mars and Venus over here in the western sky. Now, a few episodes back, we actually talked about the planet Venus rising and becoming a prominent object in the early evening sky. We also talked about two exciting missions named Da Vinci Plus and Veritas that will be sent to study Venus's geology. And if you want to check that video out, look for our Sky Tonight tour for June 21st to the 27th on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MoazDaytona. Now, this week is a great opportunity to find Venus still. Easily the brightest planet, and in fact the brightest object in this week's sky as it continues to rise, moving away from the constellation of Cancer the Crab. You can see here Cancer the Crab, one of the 12 constellations of the zodiac, and it moves closer relative to how we see it at least, to the red planet Mars. So I'm going to continue to fast forward time from the 5th, throughout the 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th, all the way throughout the week, and you can see here Venus getting closer and closer to Mars. Now, throughout this week and into next, Venus will continue its trek across the early evening sky, appearing very close to Mars on the 13th. This is an event we call a conjunction, a period at which two objects, planets in this case, appear very, very close to one another relative to our nighttime sky. And be sure to check out next week's Sky Tonight segment, as we'll be covering this event in greater detail. But I wanted to show you at least these two planets are still very bright in our early evening sky. The opportunity to see Venus this week is incredible, so go out there and check it out. Now, as a side note, Mercury will actually appear at its highest in our early morning sky around the 9th this week, near the constellation of Orion the Hunter and Taurus the Bull. So if you want to check out Mercury, this is a very early morning object appearing right before sunrise. Now, one of my personal favorite stars can be found close to the highest part of the sky, the zenith angle. And this is Arcturus in the constellation of Boötes, the Plowman. Arcturus is a red giant star that is prominent in the spring and summer season and is the fourth brightest star in the sky. Now, the name Arcturus actually comes from the ancient Greek and means the guardian of the bear, and this actually connects with another constellation into the sky very, very close to Arcturus and Boötes, the constellation of Ursa Major, the Great Bear. Now, you're actually familiar with this constellation, or at least a part of it, a part that we refer to as an asterism, and in particular this is the asterism of the Big Dipper. You can actually see the ladle-like shape of the Big Dipper within the constellation of the Great Bear, and this is constellation in particular you can find in the north by northwest, and in fact it's very close to another constellation or asterism that you are familiar with, the Little Dipper, or Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. The constellations of Ursa Major and Ursa Minor are two very prominent constellations. In fact, you can see them for the most part throughout most of the year, especially the constellation of Ursa Minor. You can see this throughout all the year, at least here in the northern hemisphere, and connects to the northern star Polaris. Now, I didn't want to touch upon these two constellations too much, but I just wanted to show you that at least in the north and northwest, you can see these two prominent constellations and the sub-constellations, the asterisms, that are huge parts of them. But I want to go back between Boötes and Ursa Minor, the Great Plowman and the Great Bear, back to Arcturus, the guardian of the bear. As mentioned, it's one of my favorite stars. And this is actually, as I mentioned, a red giant star, very, very bright, very close to us as well. We're sticking around the western early evening for a deep sky object, and this one is really incredible. And if you're into astrophotography, whether you've been photographing the deep sky for a while or if you're new to the hobby, check out Messier 101, which is known as the Pinwheel Galaxy. This can be found at the tail of Ursa Major, near the sickle of Boötes, the great plowman as well. Really awesome galaxy here. It's incredible that you can actually see a galaxy like this, even with a relatively small telescope, because this is an incredibly far away object, around 25 million light years away. But it is a great subject to image, especially for beginners. The Pinwheel Galaxy is a giant spiral galaxy that's almost twice the size of our own Milky Way, and may contain upwards of 1 trillion stars. And as I mentioned, even with a relatively small telescope, you can make out this distant spiral galaxy. And it can be found in our early evening sky, along with the other constellations and objects that I showed you, very close to Boötes and Ursa Major. And this is highly recommended. I want you to check out the Pinwheel Galaxy. Now, this image of the Pinwheel Galaxy kind of leads us to our last segment of this week's Sky Tonight. As this image in particular, the one you're looking at, was taken by the now imperiled Hubble Space Telescope. You may remember from last week's episode, or heard in general, that one of the onboard computers controlling the telescope's instrumentation, known as the NASA Standard Spaceflight Computer, experienced an issue that caused it to revert into a quote-unquote safe mode that NASA has been trying to wake up from since the 13th of June. As it stands now, this primary computer is still non-functional, but NASA plans to boot up some of the system backups, try to get it up and running again. And we here at the Lohmann Planetarium hope that they can get the systems up and running and resume some of that awesome research that they unfortunately had to postpone due to this computer's failure. We're really excited to see what's going to happen. We're a little nervous too, but we are hoping that NASA can get the Hubble Space Telescope back up and running. Now lastly for this week, on Sunday, the 11th of July, around 8 p.m., SpaceX plans to launch a Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral for the Starlink 29 mission. Now these missions, which plan to create a massive constellation of small satellites that will bring wireless internet to more places around the world, have become more commonplace. However, this is still a great opportunity to see a launch, especially a launch of a Falcon 9 rocket. So if you're in our area, the area of Daytona Beach, or even near Cape Canaveral, go and check it out. It's going to be an incredible launch nonetheless. However, if you're watching from abroad, still try to check it out online on SpaceX's website. And that's it for another edition of our Sky Tonight program. We want to thank you for tuning in and really appreciate your support. And please stop by the Lohmann Planetarium at the Museum of Arts and Sciences. If you want any info on our shows or events, check out our website as well at moaz.org. Thank you, take care, and happy stargazing.